Thank you to our viewers who are tuning into another CSE listed issuer update. I'm Anil Mall. I represent the CSE, and today I am speaking with George Glasier. George is the CEO of Western Uranium and Vanadium Corp. This is a company that trades under the symbol WUC. George, I appreciate you taking the time this morning. I hope you're well.
Yes, I'm well. Thank you.
Great. George, why don't we begin by you maybe just giving our viewers a brief introduction to Western Uranium and Vanadium and the focus of your company.
Okay, good. Now, Western is a relatively new company formed in 2015, listed on the CSE in 2015, acquired the assets from a company I had previously founded, that's Energy Fuels. We acquired some of their production assets in Colorado and Utah in 2014, and then listed on CSE in 2015. The assets we acquired were assets which were basically produced in the past primarily by Denison Mines before Energy Fuels acquired it. So they're permitted mines ready to go into production. That was our whole goal, was to buy assets that we could start production on almost immediately. Of course, the uranium market back in 2015-16 really didn't justify starting up the mine. So we continued with the standby status of these mines until about 2 years ago, at which time we basically decided to turn them on. We saw that the uranium market was turning slowly, but more recently, more rapidly. So we turned the mines on, started the operations at several of these mines. The Sunday Mine Complex actually has 5 mines, 5 operating mines. We've got 4 of them in operation now, with crews operating 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. We're a single shift at 12 hours. We are developing as well as stockpiling the development ore at the mines now. So those mines will be ready to feed material into the market here in the next year or two as we see the uranium price continuing to strengthen.
Correct. And on that note, as we see the price strengthen, we also see a lot of investor interest that's coming into the uranium space. George, can I maybe pick your brain a little bit and get your insight into the current uranium markets as well as the equity markets?
Sure. I've been in this business for a long time. I saw the first uranium boom clear back in the 70s when the price went all the way up to $43 and some cents, which compared to today's dollar is probably over $100, but that didn't stay. Obviously, we had, problems back there, 3 Mile Island, a few other things. The price went down for years, and then it started up again in 2005 or 6. But what happened, that was probably a false start to the industry also, because there was still plenty of uranium around in inventories, not necessarily production. But there was not a supply-demand crunch at that point. Now I think there truly is a supply crunch. The supply has gone down. The demand has continued to rise, maybe slowly, but it's gone up. So we're in a situation now where the supply is going to dictate the price rather than the demand side. And I think that's going to continue into the near future, maybe in the next 4, 5, or 6 years, until you can bring on more production. And more production requires higher prices. And this is not my opinion. This is the opinion of the analysts that follow this industry. You just can't produce uranium in this world at $50. So we've got to have higher prices, which we do today. And so I think now companies will start to plan turning on mines, but it doesn't take, just a few years to turn on new uranium mines. It's a long process. If you take a look at the Canadian mines, they've got great properties, but it takes years to bring these on. Same thing in the United States. It takes years to bring new mines on. And so this price, even though it will incentivize companies to start, it doesn't mean that the inventory situation is going to change in the next year or two. There just isn't near-term production that can satisfy that demand.
And so what were some of the catalysts last year that created this buzz around uranium?
Well, 2 years ago, it was the buzz when the Russians invaded Ukraine. The Russians are a big supplier for the free world's uranium supply, and so that caused the price to go up. The idea was the Russians' uranium may be cut off. Well, it wasn't, okay? And so the Russians are still supplying a good chunk of the uranium, along with some of the countries that are closer to the Russians, like the Kazakhs. They're still supplying a good chunk of the uranium. But I think right now, 2 years later, we've got a real real boom where situation, there just isn't enough uranium out there. The Kazakhs have announced they've been sold out for the next couple of years. Cameco, which is a big producer, is sold out at least in the next few years. And so there just isn't going to be enough for the next, let's say, 4 or 5 years. Now, beyond 4 or 5 years, if you bring on new mines, it could very well supply the industry. But we're looking at some shortages 4, 5, 6 years out that are going to keep these prices elevated at even maybe higher levels than we see today.
So the focus of you and your team at Western Uranium and Vanadium is in the region of Utah and Colorado, specifically the Uravan mineral belt.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Why is this region so prolific when it comes to uranium and uranium production?
Well, this is an area that's produced on for years, clear back into the 50s. And the interesting thing about this area, it also contains very, very relatively high-grade uranium for the U.S., but it also has high-grade vanadium content in the same rock. So again, that economics of mining in this area are better than some of the areas that contain all the uranium, and especially in the U.S. where we have lower-grade uranium. We've got a lot of uranium in Wyoming and in New Mexico, which do not contain the co-product vanadium. The Uravan mineral belt is one of the areas that we have both uranium and vanadium, which basically contributes to a lower cost production scenario.
So let's now dial it back to 2023. The year just flew by, but it seemed that you and your team were quite busy compiling data, getting news out. You want to maybe summarize what 2023 as a company and team looked like for you guys?
Right. Well, 2023, we geared up for the development and production of the Sunday Mine Complex. That was the big thing. Acquiring equipment, which basically is expensive and time-consuming. We were able to equip at least 2 full mining crews in there. We were able to hire the people for 2 full mining crews. There obviously in the U.S., there's a shortage of experienced miners. It doesn't make any difference whether uranium, gold, silver. We just haven't mined, and the experienced miners are hard to come by. We were able to acquire the equipment and, find the people to equip the mine, and that's what we did in 23, and now we're going full out. We're going to need to equip it further with additional equipment and people as we go forward. But 23 was a big turnaround year, at least for getting up and running at the Sunday Mine.
And here we are, 2024. What are the plans from you and your team for 2024 for the company?
Well, obviously, to continue what we're doing at the Sunday Mine, which is primarily mine development, getting ready for full mining operations. That will continue through this year, being ready for full mining operations in early 25. Obviously, there's no place right now to ship the ore because there's no operating uranium mill. Energy Fuels has announced they may have a buying schedule that they may put out sometime early this year. If that buying schedule looks attractive to us, we could certainly ship some ore to Energy Fuels operating mill that they've announced they may start that in 25. So that would fit in with our mining plans. And of course, our long-term mining plan is to ship ore to our own processing plant that we're in the process of planning and developing that now.
Got it. George, can we maybe talk a little bit about your background, how you got into this space, and then some of your key team members that you've brought on board to make sure that this is a success?
Sure. I started back in the uranium industry clear back in the late 1970s during that boom when the price went up to $43. I started with a company called Energy Fuels Nuclear. That company became the largest uranium producer in the United States, twice as big as anybody else. It was a privately owned company. Interestingly, in those days, most of the uranium was produced by big oil companies, big mining companies, and Energy Fuels was a startup company founded by a guy by the name of Bob Adams, who was a pioneer in the business. He had started a company clear back in the 1950s called Western Nuclear. So he founded Energy Fuels, and I was one of the first employees. That company was sold in 1991, and the industry was kind of flat at that point. So I ventured into other things, and then back in about 2005, I got back into the industry and formed another company and called it also Energy Fuels. I formed that company. That company now has market cap over $1 billion, if you're familiar with that company. I left that company in 2011 for other business interests I had. And then in 2014, bought some of the key assets from Energy Fuels that is now the basis of the asset base of Western.
Strong team, great jurisdiction, background. Any other key team members that you want to address?
Yeah, I brought Mike. Mike Rutter was a key guy at the Energy Fuels team. I hired him back in 2007. He's now our operating vice president. Bruce Norquist was the mine engineer with Energy Fuels. He's now our operations manager. We've hired some of the miners that worked for Energy Fuels clear back in those days, running the mines out there. So we've geared up with a staff that's quite experienced in mining, and especially in uranium mining in this area.
George, we always encourage our viewers to go do their due diligence. Of course, go to your website, sign up for your newsletters and press releases, and of course, reach out to you and your team should they have more questions. Where would you like to direct our viewership?
Well, certainly come to our website. You can get my phone number. I'm happy to talk or email with investors or potential investors anytime.
Excellent. George, I look forward to hosting you on again, maybe towards the end of summer, where we can talk a little bit more about the progress and provide another update to our viewers.
Excellent. Maybe I'll do it from the mine site and show you mine on here.
You know what? If you have good internet connection, I think that would be valuable content that our issuers would love to see you and your team with boots on the ground.
Yeah, it's not often you probably see a mine, but we can put you right in the mine. We do have an internet out there through the Starlink, and it works great, even though it's a somewhat remote location. Definitely, we could do that.
There we go. I'm going to take you up on that, and we will, the next time I guess we do this, we'll do it while you're at the mine site.
Right. We will do that.
Awesome. To everybody listening and watching, you've been hearing from George Glasier. He is the CEO of Western Uranium and Vanadium Corp. It's WUC. George, again, I appreciate you taking the time today, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Good. Thank you.
Chips.